Did you know that some of the most well-known and admired celebrities in the world led double lives as spies? For decades, artists, musicians, and other famous people have been sending information to government agencies. Some of these activities have been so secretive that we are only getting these revelations years after they passed away. Tekashi 69. While not exactly an FBI or CIA super spy, Brooklyn-born rapper Tekashi 69 is more of an unwitting informant. Otherwise known as Daniel Hernandez, he started making chart-topping music in 2017. His singles Gumma and Fifi peaked on the Billboard Hot 100 at numbers 12 and 3 respectively. His star was short-lived though. See, just a year later in 2018, he was arrested on racketeering, weapons, and drug charges. Facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life in prison, Hernandez decided to do something that drew the ire of many onlookers. He snitched. You see, he was a member of the 9 Trey Gangsta Bloods, a division of the Bloods gang. His arrest was part of a joint operation in cracking down on the 9 Trey members. Hernandez testified against Aljamaiyah Nuke, Mac, and Anthony Harv Ellison. Funnily enough, Ellison was accused of kidnapping Hernandez back in a 2018 case. Yeah, it gets complicated. He infamously outed a staggering number of rappers as being members of the Bloods. Among others, Hernandez name-dropped his former manager Kafano Shadi Jordan and Cardi B. This has caused several famous rappers to speak out against him. Snoop Dogg, Future, and Meek Mills have all derided him as a rat. And after all of this, the rapper still may end up serving nearly 47 years in prison. We're not sure yet because the sentencing is going to happen a few months as of the upload of this video, so his future is as of yet undecided. Harry Houdini. Born Eric Weiss in Hungary, the man later known as Harry Houdini would go on to become a master escape artist and magician. But according to the 2007 biography, The Secret Life of Houdini, his magic career only took off with the assistance of law enforcement. The authors gained access to countless pieces of evidence, along with reviewing a journal written by British spy master William Melville. They created a database of over 700,000 pages in their investigation. As a struggling magician in Chicago, he ended up having a chance encounter with a detective involved with the International Association of Chiefs of Police. This officer was also a practitioner of magic and offered up a quid pro quo arrangement: career opportunities at large venues in exchange for spy work for the agency. He chased down counterfeiters for the U.S. Secret Service before working for William Melville in England starting in 1908. He would train soldiers on how to survive in dangerous or stressful situations, given his skills as an escape artist. Houdini would work with Melville to spy on Germany in the years leading up to World War I. In 1926, his life was stopped short when someone punched him in the stomach while he was suffering from appendicitis. Frank Sinatra. A renowned singer in the 20th century, Frank Sinatra produced many hits, including My Way and Come Fly With Me. It's also pretty well known that he had some connections with the Mafia. Now, Sinatra would never corroborate this himself, but nearly everyone who knew him would go on to confirm his ties to the criminal underworld. But did you know that Sinatra tried to play both sides at multiple times in his life? Oh yeah, that's right. Despite the numerous friendships that he made and flaunted with notable gangsters like Chicago boss Sam Giancana, he was always interested in being an informant for the FBI. In 1950, Sinatra sent a middleman over to communicate with the FBI head, J. Edgar Hoover. He offered to snitch on many of his criminal friends in exchange for protection. Surprisingly, Hoover was adamantly against the idea of working with the singer. One of his aides was so against working with Sinatra that he wrote, "We want nothing to do with him." This was likely because of his supposed communist leanings, helping fight racism and assisting those who were sent to the Hollywood blacklist during the Red Scare of the 1950s. Years later, in 1963, Sinatra's son was kidnapped. The FBI, which was revealed to have been spying on Sinatra for decades now, told him to pay the ransom to the kidnappers. This allowed the Bureau to track down the money and therefore the abductors. Sinatra would later go on to request his FBI file through the Freedom of Information Act, revealing all of the information that you just heard. Walt Disney. Everyone knows Walt Disney as the founder of the Walt Disney Company and its many family-friendly properties. From Mickey Mouse to Cinderella, Disney was the pinnacle of entertainment when he was alive. But it wasn't until March Elliott, a writer, uncovered his secret FBI ties to the Freedom of Information Act. It all started in 1941. A massive strike broke out in Disney's studio, with those involved stating that it was caused by bad leadership and low morale. but Walt Disney was convinced that it was the fault of the communists. Later in 1947, he assisted FBI head J. Edgar Hoover with the HUAC, the House Un-American Activities Committee. This was an initiative that illegally surveilled left-leaning individuals in the entertainment industry. Disney would go on to fire any of his employees involved in union activism. He helped create the Hollywood blacklist that denied employment to artists that were believed to have been or were communist sympathizers. This period of history was known as the Red Scare, and it hurt the career of many well-known actors, writers, and filmmakers. The FBI would also have access to Disneyland, which would open up years later. Disney remained an informant for the rest of his life. Al Sharpton. Many people recognize the Reverend Al Sharpton as a civil rights activist and a host of his own television show on MSNBC. He is also a close friend of former President Barack Obama. But back in the 1980s, he became an informant for the FBI after a sting operation between Sharpton and an undercover agent over drug sales. And according to reports from the Smoking Gun, he had a lot of connections to the criminal element. He was more or less persuaded to cooperate with authorities. Throughout the decades, Sharpton would have meetings with various mafiosos carrying a bugged briefcase and was referred to by case files as CI7. In several instances, he assisted with the investigations of the Gambino, Colombo, and Giovesi families. He reportedly had 10 conversations with Gambino member Joseph Buonanno. They covered everything from extortion plans to hits, all the while being listened to through a mic in Sharpton's briefcase. Today, Sharpton actively denies being an informant, but he does admit to working with the FBI. However, several law enforcement sources confirm it to be true. Christopher Lee. Sir Christopher Lee is a legendary actor whose work in Dracula, Star Wars, and Lord of the Rings has captured the imaginations of audiences for generations. But before his acting career took off, Lee was a government operative performing secret missions for the British military during World War II. He first enlisted as an intelligence officer in 1940, decoding German ciphers. He moved into the long-range desert group, sabotaging enemy planes in North Africa. In a 2011 interview with The Telegraph, Lee refused to reveal more about this period of time when asked about it. He said, "Let's just say I was in the Special Forces and leave it at that. People can read into it what they like." It was reported that during his time there, he helped to take back Sicily from the Allies and contracted malaria on multiple occasions. But the most interesting task for him was to quell a rebellion within his own ranks. During the last few months of the war, he was brought into Winston Churchill's elite spy organization, the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. Though much of it is still classified, Lee's job was to conduct espionage across the world hunting stray Nazis. And all of this happened before he turned 25. No wonder he chose the life of a cushy celebrity after that. Elvis Presley. Here's an honorable mention, because even though acclaimed rock and roller Elvis Presley was never an undercover spy, the story of how he got an honorary badge of a DEA agent is too crazy not to share. By the year 1970, the King of Rock was having a resurgence in a career that started back nearly 20 years prior. Elvis decided that one day he really wanted a narc badge because he believed that with it, he would be able to legally travel the world carrying as many guns and drugs as he wanted. So he took off to Washington, D.C., writing a letter on the way to President Richard Nixon. He offered to help the country in any way he can in return for a federal badge. His letter said, "I will be here for as long as it takes to get the credentials of a federal agent." He dropped off the letter and then had a successful meeting with the deputy director of the Bureau of Narcotics and Dangerous Drugs. His letter managed to find its way to Nixon, and a meeting with the president was confirmed. An aide to Nixon noted Presley indicated that he thought the Beatles had been a real force for anti-American spirit. The president was so moved by Elvis's anti-drug message that he ordered a badge be made for the singer. However, the White House never actually recognized Elvis as a federal officer, and the Drug Enforcement Agency, or the DEA, that would be formed years later never recognized him either. We all know that Elvis always had a history of drug use. We're pretty sure that he never mentioned that to Nixon. That's only some of the secret government agents in history. We are absolutely sure that there are other celebrities out there who are currently engaging in spy work or espionage. We just don't know it yet. Which famous person did we miss? Do you think any others are informants? Let us know in the comments section down below.